coffee can with a dead mole in it, brought in by the excited third grade boy, it was a productive 2 weeks. If you don't account for the sessions in the nurse's bathroom, making sure the kindergartner finally took care of business, it was a productive 2 weeks. If you ignore time spent coaching adolescent girls to find purpose in school, besides just getting on the bus because it stops in front of their houses, a lot got accomplished in the last 2 weeks. If you never mind scurrying with the librarian to make book baskets for struggling readers to have some independent reading materials, I'd say it was a pretty good 2 weeks. If you don't keep in mind helping 5th grade boys write a letter to Oprah Winfrey, asking for a donation to their new club UNICEF, if you discount conversations with teachers about professional goal setting, if you forgot about talking to parents about whether or not breastfeeding is an appropriate type of bus conversation, and if you never mind practicing teacher evaluation using new software and new quality indicators, I would say I actually got something done these past 2 weeks. So there's that.
What a lovely update.
Well, Michelle one time asked, what I think you do? So that was truly the inspiration for that poem. I did just want to tell you about two, they're just ongoing developments in the elementary wing. Our teachers are wrestling with our new math curriculum, Envision Math, trying to mold a textbook to mirror the state's scope and sequence. And some are luckier than others. The textbook sort of marches with the beat of the state, while others have been struggling a little bit more. But over time, in using our OC's math coach, I can say, in all truthfulness, that our teachers are a lot more relaxed about math instruction. But that textbook series did represent a massive change, not only in precisely what they were teaching, but how fast they had to teach it. And that's hard. That'll be difficult all year long. So I just want to, I'm happy to say that everyone's a little bit more relaxed about math. We're also experiencing a shift in reading instruction to meet the needs of a lot of our struggling readers. And we're using a model that hopefully over time is going to maximize student engagement in reading and writing and somewhat minimize really the resources necessary to have students moving up to grade level reading. It's called the Daily 5 model, and it is really just a model. It's not a product. It doesn't have a textbook series that goes with it. But the idea is that starting at very young ages, as young as kindergarten, we are modeling and teaching really precise academic behaviors around how students would interact with text. It's not just to sit and listen. It's a lot of engagement in finding evidence in whatever children are reading and then using that to generate writing. And the idea is as kids grow older, 3rd grade, 4th grade, they can start to do a lot more of the work within the text independently and be monitored by the teacher. But you could really have up to 4 different reading groups in your room, all practicing the exact same skill or skills, and being just as skilled, but doing so at the actual level they can read at. But the idea being that it's not enough for us all to sit around and read the same book anymore, because as we all probably suspected, half the kids don't know how to read it anyway. So, but this model allows for students, no matter what reading level they're at, to get all the skills and strategies they need. And the more we can emphasize this at earlier grade levels, hopefully the faster we can close some gaps. Some reading gaps just can't be closed. Kids read at different ages, and they read more fluently at different ages. And this isn't a magic bullet by any means. Not everyone believes it's a magic bullet or even a bullet. There's a lot more to English language arts instruction now when it comes to Common Core and the complexity of text that our students by grades 5 and 6 are supposed to be deeply involved with. So this is just one part of it, but there's a lot of movement in school and a lot of teachers week by week coming around to trying out parts of the Daily 5. So that's really good news, and we've got a great reading coach through BOCES who comes in once a week. Teachers are signing up for the prep periods. And she really tells it like it is, which is pretty neat, and she's gained the respect of our teachers here. So.
Okay, in the high school level, I've made it through all of my high school staff with goals meetings. And according to APPR, there's to be 2 or 3 focused areas. So the teachers had done self-evaluations and then chosen 3. Well, they had to do goals in all of the domains, and then we sat and we discussed which would be the 2 or 3 focus areas. So now we've moved on to the eye observation, where they're going to be putting together the personal growth plans. And I think that we've always had the process of setting goals, but I think that what we're doing now is going to make sure that we follow through and that we actually have carryover to the end, and that the goals will make, having a goal will make a difference as far as what that teacher is doing to improve as a teacher. I think that the 7 through 12 teachers are more relaxed because we've kind of knocked out the SLOs and the LLOs so that they have an understanding of what they're doing, their pre-assessments, and their final target numbers are due by the 31st of October. And I've sat with lots of them, and we worked through things. And in fact, today with my band people, we knocked out the second half. And I think,
can you give them an idea of what a SLO is? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know that they necessarily know what that is.
oh, I thought we would, because we talked about it last
Do
year.
you? I know you do.
I don't.
So
They're learning objectives that the teachers have chosen an area where we can assess the students, and there's 2 models. There's a growth model and there's an achievement model. And in the state mandated part of it, you have to get 20% of your teacher evaluation from the state learning objective, and then 20% from the local learning objective. So in the state level, it has to be based on growth. But with our music teachers today, we sat down and kind of hammered out. They've done their pre-assessments. They had a nice rubric that showed 4 or 5 different skills that are required in band, and they've pre-assessed their kids. And then the 3 of us collectively set levels. So we have 8 levels of movement from the beginning to the end as far as their rubric goes. And then what they'll do now is they've done pre-assessments to see where they're starting. They'll go back and they'll look at all of their students to decide where they think that child should end the year as far as a target for where they want to move to in levels. And just because a student is in the lower level doesn't mean that necessarily they're going to go up only to the 2nd or up to the 3rd. That's where the teacher will use their professional judgment too, to what past practice with this student, how much did they practice, what's their interest level, what's their talent ability, because obviously every kid is different, but she only has 56 kids in the junior high band, and she is going to assess all of them, but she won't individualize necessarily every student's rationale to why I predict that that level 1 student will only go to level 2. There will be a pocket of kids that, okay, they're at level 1, I assume they'll get to level 2 because blah, 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 blah. There might be some that are level 1 that I predict they'll get to level 3 because of blah, 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 blah. And then in the upper levels, when it gets to the higher, this can be used all the way from their beginning band kids all the way up to their seniors. But when they get to the upper levels, then it's a little more difficult to move from level 6 to level 7 to level 8, so we made them a little bit less wide in order to give room for movement. And I just thought we sat down and had a common sense approach to how do we do it. And I know that music was one of those areas where we wondered, like, how do you ever assess the teacher in that? But I think we're comfortable with it. And I didn't feel that the teachers were trying to make it so easy that they would automatically appear to be effective. They really have goals to where they want their kids, their bands to get to. And we also set up an achievement model for their local assessment based on what level they want their entire band as a group to perform at. So I think that it was a good, I think it's a good model. I wouldn't be afraid to share it with anyone else, and we'll see at the end of the year whether what we came up with was effective or not effective. And that's truly what the whole process is about.
Michelle, is this the first year for this?
Yes.
So if I was a teacher, I'd set say I'm gonna have a student up to level 3, if you put it, do you challenge that, or do you agree with it? I mean, if I said I'm gonna have them up to check level 2, do you know enough about the students to say, I think they're capable of more than that?
We had 2 teachers that used a very scientific method or a very mathematical method to setting up their slows, and both of those teachers I brought in and said, this can't happen. You know, a third of your kids can't fail this class based on what you're saying. And if you're saying that they're going to do that, then what are we going to do to make sure that it doesn't happen? And the other one, 6, I think, out of 36, mathematically. Well, this teacher's never going to allow. I've never seen him have that many kids fail. It's not in his makeup to allow it to happen. So then I had to bring those people back and say, no, you're allowed to use some professional judgment into this too, to kind of decide what's acceptable. We do have some kids where they might be predicted to not pass, but it's more likely a class that doesn't have a 2-year option. It might be a person who has low academic ability to start with, and if it takes us 2 years to get through that class, then that's actually a realistic goal for that particular student. But then we also have, we have the other end too. Just because they're very bright, we aren't resting on the fact that they're bright. They still have to have growth, and the more growth, we have to be careful that with our upper end kids that we don't say, oh, they're bright, so we don't need to worry about them. They need to be challenged to the same. They have the same right to be challenged as the lower end kids. So I think I've seen teachers who I think that were kind of set on a rock. I see that rock moving. I see them thinking about what they're doing and how can I change it. And I think there's a little bit of challenge as they're starting to figure out what the process is asking them to do. It's kind of interesting. But some are very, I guess I shouldn't say the word anal, but they're kind of anal that they want 4.0s, and anything less than 4.0 is not good. Well, 4.0 is like way beyond and exceeding effective. Effective is a 3. If you're at a solid 3, you're doing a good service to your kids. To get to that 4 is going to be really tough. And it's a paradigm shift that some of them are struggling through, but I think that that push to want to be that 4 is going to make it better in the classroom. So
you see a lot of teachers that would evaluate student A and pretty much still come up with where they're going to be, the growth rate be pretty much the same from 2 different teachers. They pick one student.
No. Like the Regents courses, it's really going to be looked at what are the Regents scores, because it has to be the state model. And I haven't seen any teachers saying, let me just, go lowball.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if I have one student A in class, and there's the same 2 different teachers would say this child should be here now and should be here in a year, should be at this point. When they say that, are they pretty much saying the same numbers? This is a 1 here, and you.
I haven't looked across the board to see that.
I just wondered if 1 is more.
Up to 8th grade, we don't have any. From 4th through 8th grade, we have no say in what the kids are going to get, because they're going to get their state growth number from the end of the year test they give in 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So the other part that we're using for those grades is the local assessment, is the STAR reading and STAR math, to focus on reading and math as the other part of that. So those are pretty much set. It's truly at the high school level. For Mike Galt, who's teaching, like so many different classes, and there's no guidance on agriculture to what's expected at the beginning to the end, and what's. So he's had to look at his course and see what is it that he wants to define as this student has done well, and I've been effective at getting the student from here to there. So it might be a welding project that he does a pre-assessment and a knowledge test on, and then a project at the end and rubrics in place. So it's been challenging, more challenging for the non-core teachers to come up with how do I prove I'm effective? Then the content area person who can kind of do a pre-assessment knowledge test and a post-assessment knowledge test. Or they don't even have to do a pre-assessment. If it's their local, they can just say, all my kids are going to get at least a such and such on their test, or this many kids should get at least a 65 as a final grade, this many should get an 85 as a final grade, and do an achievement-based model. So
It does look very different depending on your age level that you're teaching and the subject matter you're teaching.
Right.
Part of the thing that we struggled through at high school was everybody's trying to get a common, common looking SLO or whatever it is. Finally had to come to realization what I'm doing is very different.
exactly. I've allowed every teacher to come in and kind of say to me, what do you want to do for your local assessment? And then we work together and decide it. I can tell you that in English 11, they get state tested on the Regents exam, and then for her local, I think she is doing it's not a speech, I'm not sure what she's doing for that, but for her 12th grade, one of hers is on a speech and the other is on a written essay. I think, I don't remember what Belle's got for her LLO. It might be her 12th graders because she doesn't have to actually use her 11th graders for a local assessment.
I hear you guys talking about these programs and this whole evaluation thing. And I'm thinking from the civilian point of view, I mean, a non-teaching type person with the exception of Joe, is there more information is there a minimum number of information that we should know about this whole teaching evaluation thing so we have a good understanding anyway of what's going on for the board? I'm speaking for myself, I can't speak for the rest of the board, but do you feel we know enough about it?
The only thing that I can truly say to you, Lynn, is that I've been downstate to visit back where my friends are, and my cousin is a principal in Candor, and I've talked to my friends in Dryden, and you talk to the principals in this area, everybody in New York State is feeling the uneasiness of this whole process because it's new.
Yeah.
But I would say definitely that we have passed that hump of being really anxious about it and kind of settling back into this is what we're doing. It's not a whole lot different than what they've always done once we get past the slow being written.
I was just thinking whether certain things that the board people being outsiders should have a thorough understanding of.
There's a website, www.engagenewyork.org, is it?
Yes.
That has much information on all of this. And that's a resource that the teachers can use, that the administrators use, that everybody uses. It talks about principal and teacher evaluation. It talks about the slow process, the low process. You'll find that there's BOCES that has samples on their websites of slows that have been written. Not all of them are good, and they'll tell you that. It's more samples. Everybody's slow can look a little different too. So that would be one. As far as Marzano, we're using the eye observation. If you go to www.effectiveeducators.com, you can get the information on Marzano that we're using for our teacher rubric.
So at some point this year, we're going to probably get reports on how teachers are doing.
If we ever get that far.
We haven't even started observations yet because we're getting all of this.
Well, at the end of the year, we should have some kind of report.
Right.
Yes, and I think then, well, I don't know if it'll be the end of the year. I think it'll be more likely around the end of August, September, that we're going to be showing you what we got last year. And I think we're going to be going back to our pre-assessments and looking at them and evaluating were they worthy or were they not. And we're going to have some flops. There's no doubt about it that we're going to have some things that didn't work, and we're going to have other things that did work. And one of the things I admire, like I mentioned, Mrs. Parrott before, she's remembering or looking at reading, writing, and speaking. Those are the three things that she focuses on, and she wanted to make sure that those things were part of the evaluation process for the students because that's the bread and butter of what she needs to do. So she really challenged herself with her assessments, and really pleased with where all of the teachers have come, because they are challenging themselves. They aren't just making it an easy process for themselves.
Just one fascinating story. I deal a lot with the STAR assessment program, and when you are working with special needs populations, it's all just, it feels like it's a weird guessing game. However, STAR equips you with all these little predictive measures. So after having sat down with our younger children's 12-on-1 teacher and using all of the STAR calculations, you know, we just sort of stared at the numbers, and it gives the teacher a really uneasy feeling. These are students whose developmental growth is usually significantly delayed in some way, shape, or form. So she did her best, and she made some predictive measures, and she used all the other information she knew about the students. So it's not all just about what STAR tells you. I've had Johnny for 2 years. I know Johnny's like a good 6 months behind. I know his growth rate is half that of his peers. And she came up with some predictions. She just used, as she put it, like this math of mine, and did that. And I said, okay, well, let me take that now and take all those students' scores and analyze it with this little goal manufacturer, goal-making product that STAR also offers. And she has students who started the year in the first percentile. That means 99 other students are ahead of them in every way, shape, and form. But what the goal setting, it's like a wizard or something, allows you to do is to say, I'd like for this student to be at this percentile at the end of the year. So for kids who are in the first percentile, you know, I don't know that we can really be too rigorous there, not knowing where they're going to be next. So I maintained that they'd be at the second percentile. They would maintain their percentile rank, and within that they would grow. So I did that, and I calculated it out for everybody else, so everyone would maintain their percentile rank, but that would still show growth. Put it all down in a column, sat back down with the teacher, and her predictions using, as she put it, her math, and my predictions were so close, that it really is a testament to how well teachers really can know their students. Now, of course, we'll wait till the end of the year to decide for sure. And we gave her a little range to cushion her, because again, it's unfair to use this super precise measure with these students who are so not precise. But it was pretty fascinating to see that she on her own, with her own intuitive abilities, were right where STAR was, and I just think that's neat.
Are the CSE children in this evaluation too?
Yeah.
That's the one
That's
she
the
was just
one
talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was one.
One thing I've learned from being a leader in a school is you don't tell them what you want them to do. You kind of make suggestions, and you kind of lead them and hope they find it, you know. And I didn't tell my 9th and 10th grade teachers use the STAR, but everyone, I would kind of say, why don't you just use the STAR? Why don't you just use the STAR? And finally, one or two, one decided and then another decided, and they realized, is it all right if we both do STAR, because we'd be working together and all of the kids would be getting reading, and that means 2 of us are working at it. And then all of a sudden there was a third one. Now my history teacher is bought into it. And so it's grown from being independent to now teachers realizing if we work together as a group to improve reading comprehension through the STAR program, make it that part of our focus, all of our kids will benefit more, and we will benefit more because it comes back to the teacher effectiveness scores. So that was nice to see happen, and it's kind of just comical because would it be all right? I'm like, I've just been waiting for you guys to figure it out and say it to me, but if I told them, you know, in talking about programming too, one of the things that we are looking at, I've now had some teachers saying to me, I'd really like to get a workshop on differentiated instruction, which means layering the activities that students have to do within your class based on their academic abilities. And the kids that are the super high self-motivated, the learning objective is the same, but the activity they might be doing might be different than the middle group or the average group. And 2 years ago, when I first came, and I said, let's do differentiated instruction. They all said no, you know, and all of a sudden now I'm generating a list of teachers who are realizing that's something that they want to use, but that goes back to, you can't tell them they have to do it, but you kind of have to lead them and hope that they, you know, kind of figure it out. And that's another thing that I think that the staff is really looking at. How am I teaching things? Most of them are really looking at how am I teaching it, and how can I do it better, and what do I need to do to change a little bit. So anyway, resolving rate, we had Rick Adam come in, an outstanding performance, and he is a survivor of an abusive alcoholic family situation. Only our 9th through 12th graders went. It was a performance because there was a little music, a lot of storytelling, a little theater stuff, but our kids were just eating up what he said because he was so real. He was talking about his life and himself and down to earth, and our kids just totally absorbed it. And right afterwards, Mrs. Cobb went up to do the critique on the program and asked her kids, and came back. The kids thought it was awesome. The teachers enjoyed it. And I think about 3 days later, a boy came out of the nurse's office, and I said, "What did you do to your wrist?" "Oh, I hurt it. I just hit a box or something." I said, "Well, I guess that program the other day applied." He said, "Yeah, my friends keep reminding me about the remote." And the guy talked about the remote. You got your push, you know, your stop, your pause, your fast forward, rewind. And so here they were using the same terminology that they had gotten out of that program, which I thought said a lot to the value of the program. Lori and I talked about our conversation that the board had the other day about parents' behavior at games, and we are going to set up, we've targeted the first week of November when the coaches are between seasons. Soccer will have ended, swimming will have ended, volleyball will have ended, and basketball has not started. And we're gonna, I think it'll start as a venting session, because I've been approached by 2 other coaches after our conversation, it was not the same coach, about similar problems with parent behavior, and when it's appropriate to talk to coaches and what it is to talk about. And we'll probably try to come up and draft something. I think that I want the coaches to be able to speak freely and know, though, that we're listening and there's support. I'm not sure if we should have a board rep at the meeting or not. I think that with Lori and I there, I think that they're going to open up to us, and I guess my preference is to make sure it's open enough that they're going to say what needs to be said, and that I can bring it back and you know, we'll draft something and put it together and get your input from them. And if we need to have more conversation after that, then we'll have more conversation to figure out what to do.
Hey, Michelle?
Yes?
A good part of that discussion, we really weren't 100% sure what the Section 10 policy is about who actually has the authority to kick a parent out of the gym or off a soccer field. Have we found that out? Is it the coach, the referee, staff member in the facility, or who can actually ask the parent to leave? Do we know?
I would think anyone in a position of authority, and pretty much the 3 you just said, would all have the authority to walk over and do that.
Okay. I remember the
I
discussion.
mean, a referee can definitely do it. The referee can say, I want that person gone.
Didn't you say a referee couldn't do that?
You can, but you wouldn't go directly to them, you go to the.
You probably go.
Okay. So just
Or-
for this meeting, you might want to have some clarification on what I'm trying to bring up here.
Or the supervisor who's there supervising the game. Because at a basketball game, when one of us is there, either of us can do that.
So in my opinion, that's what's got to start happening. We got parents that are acting in such a way that they should be asked to leave, and they should be asked to leave.
I did put a little write-up in my newsletter to the community about this, and saying, you know, suggestions. When is it appropriate to talk to the coach? When is it, you know, obviously not during a game, not at practice, not in a crowd, not, you know. So hopefully, just through a general address, but, you know, and see what happens after your meeting. Because, I mean, I think it has to go to everyone, because it's not just parents. It's also aunts and uncles or grandparents that are standing there that close.
Yeah, I guess we should say spectator, not parents.
Right.
No soup.
That's a good start then, Michelle, I think.
At that volleyball game over to Governor, they acknowledged you being there at that. But at that same gym over there, when I was at a basketball game, the Governor coach, the crowd got mouthy, I guess is the word, and he just stopped everybody, told them the players to go sit down. Then he stood right in the middle of the gymnasium and just told them, you know, what they could and could not do with it. I mean, it really hit you because he took the initiative to do that. And I thought it was very good myself.
The coach did that?
Yep. I don't know what his name is, but.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It would depend
Not all
on,
coaches are cut out like
Right.
to be there up front.
You
Right.
say Bobby Green.
Yeah.
the athletic card system, we had 4 kids that were on it. 2 of them came off and 2 of them are still on it. And we have about 18 kids on the card right now from the first progress report. And one of the things it did identify, which we knew was going to be a problem, is about 7 of them, they were all failing the same class. So we did set up a lab for these kids. When I looked at their schedules, all but one had an odd day 6th period free. We were able to set up a lab for that group of kids. And one
For
student,
tutoring.
what?
For tutoring.
Yeah, and one student who was not an athlete, though, was still included in that group. So that was a good outcome from that. And then Friday this past week, all the kids came and got their cards. One girl was absent. She came this morning looking for her card. So Lori met with them and let them know. And these are not kids these are not bad kids and not poor behaviors. I don't expect any of them to ever have a day where, you know, a card that says that they're not being supportive of what they're supposed to be doing. But it definitely was a wake-up call for them. If you want to play, you need to get it done. You got to have your grades where they're supposed to be. But they really appreciated, too, that there was a move to give them support in a class that they knew was going to be a tough class, and to get it started this quick. And we were lucky that we had a teacher who's dual certified, and I could free her up, and we were lucky that it worked out that way. We should have something from the retention committee at the next meeting, I would say, as a rough draft for a first look at policy for grades 5 to 8 with some changes that were suggested. We did meet as a committee and plan 4 homework excellence trips for this year for grades 5 to 8, 1 at the end of every 10 weeks. And the last thing, the senior class, the play that they're going to do has been moved to December from November because there was a delay in the books coming, and you know, most of those kids are all playing a sport, and it's just another month will give them more time to get it done.
Do we know the name of the play? Are we keeping
I
it secret?
ordered it, but I don't remember.
Okay.
It'll be along the same lines as last year's, you know, a cutesy little.
Yeah.
So I do know that we're doing. Oh, I don't know if I'm supposed to let you know that yet. We'll wait until we get the rights on the music to make sure we have it. So that's all I have.
I do have, the woman's name is Nadine Darrow, and she will be coming to do a kitchen audit. It actually came out as a result of, let's spell the last name if you're looking, Tompkins inspection audit. So she is coming on the 29th. Let's see what happens.
Could I ask you what Potsdam, it sounded like in the radio that they're gonna offer foods that the kids like on a separate table, or is that what they're doing, or do you have any idea?
I have no idea, Tom. I mean,
It was on the radio, it's all, I mean, you hear a lot of clips from Messina and Potsdam about their lunch program because everybody's got the same problem.
Mhm. I can just email and ask them.
Yeah, you would please.
I know that they're predicting what is it, $100,000 in loss in revenues because of their
Yeah.
district-wide, so, yeah, they have, like, 20% of the kids have stopped buying lunch. So that's
Does this
huge.
apply to like state universities too, or just up until big grade?
I know K-12, I can't answer that.
I doubt state universities, when they have parties and subway.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Because it's all about the
Private universities get it, you know, they're mandating for high schools, so.
Well, even some of the New York City schools has McDonald's in their cafeterias,
Right.
so I can't figure out how any of this would, fit into that.
How can they have that?
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, I don't know if they still do, but I know that they actually have that on campus.
Yeah.
They have brought in fast foods.
Some universities have chefs, no less.
Oh, yes.
Well, David Gravelin was hired for Pottstown as a chef.
Yeah,
20
that's
years
right.
ago. Now he's the
yeah.
BOCES person.
Gourmet meals instead of, okay.
All right, we did talk about the policy 5520, so I will submit that with a policy change of the person. The principals did get together, as Amy alluded to in her poem, to do a practice eval. I think they set me up because my font was 7. And I could not possibly see my screen. Those two were both typing, I'm thinking, look how big theirs is. But in 59 minutes, we got nowhere. I must say that thinking that it was going to be an hour or so in observation, well, the first few were going to be probably about 4 or 6 hours of observation. So just a positive note on that.
It will get better.
Yes, I sure hope so. Because I couldn't find a pair of glasses to possibly read that screen.
Oh, that's funny.
We are working on those things, but we met to get today at 4, and we were here till 5:30 just to do a practice one as a group, so we could all watch the same lesson, talk about it, see what we all saw, what we had in common, what we didn't. So that's a good way to start some new slant reviews. I told you about the newsletter and writing, and just a little bit to the parents about sports and that type of thing, and to the community, because they actually address your community, not just parents. So that kind of hits the broad spectrum. And that's all I have.
I have one more thing, but I won't take long. Tomorrow, the Learning Arts concert workshops are coming to our school. This is the same, the anonymous donor that's supplying cultural experiences, but the workshops we're getting are like West African drumming we're going to have for our 10th graders, American music, a response to history for our 11th graders, so we tried to tie it in a little bit. And then the young kids are getting spirituals for young children, Pied Piper and other fantastic tales, but these are truly, they're professional musicians that are very talented. And then they'll do their concerts on Wednesday, Broadway and Carnegie Hall, music for the imagination and freedom and imagination in the jazz age and beyond. So it's good stuff.
You saw them today?
Everyone over to, yeah.
They are very, very good.
So you heard the concerts today, right, Joe?
Mandy wants to come, what time is it?
9 o'clock is the first round of workshops and 10:10 is the second. And the next day, concerts at 9 to 10, 10:15 to 11:15, and 1 to 2. What's that?
Right price, I will tell you.
I've spoken to them.
I'm probably undercover.
I do want to say, though, to the person's credit, they started with 27 schools in the Adirondacks last year and expanded to 60 this year. And it's all being funded by one family. And it's just phenomenal what they're doing. It went from like a group of 5 to 10 people in their play until they hired about 20 more new this year. So.
And they're in
it's
training,
really
though.
exciting.
The people this year are in training to go out next year. They won't be the performers per se, the main performers. So.
Right, and these are people that hope to eventually be on Broadway and hope that, that this is their jumping stone. It's a really wonderful program.
Is there anything else before we go into executive session? Can I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss pending or current litigation, collective negotiations, and matters leading to employment of a particular person and CSE? Andy? Randy? All in favor? Are you opposed? Executive session at 8:24.